In this video, we are going to be discussing one of the most interesting people in the UFO community, Robert Bigelow. Robert Bigelow is a self-made billionaire and the biggest personal financer of UFO and paranormal research in history. Bigelow made his fortunes in real estate and later aerospace, but due to anomalous experiences had by him and his family, he has had a lifelong interest in the UFO phenomena. For over 30 years, he has financed multiple UFO and paranormal research investigations, oftentimes contracted by the US government. His long career has him being involved with cattle mutilations, UFO reports, crop circles, Skinwalker Ranch, MUFON, the University of Nevada, the Federal Aviation Administration, the Central Intelligence Agency, NASA, and the Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program. So who is Robert Bigelow? What has he researched? What connections does he have regarding the UFO phenomena? Let's find out and take a closer look at Robert Bigelow.
Some of what I say may be kind of controversial.
NIDS claims to research a wide range of natural and supernatural phenomena, including UFOs, cattle mutilations, and non-lethal weapons.
Part of the focus was on a mysterious ranch in northeastern Utah, a property once owned by businessman Robert Bigelow. The I-Team has learned that Bigelow's UFO study employed more than 50 people at
The money for the Pentagon UFO program went to a company called Bigelow Aerospace, run by a longtime friend of Reed's, Robert Bigelow, a big believer in UFOs.
Robert Bigelow was born into a poor family on May 12, 1945, in Las Vegas, Nevada. Bigelow was first exposed to science at a young age through witnessing a number of nuclear weapons tests with his family conducted 70 miles northwest of Las Vegas. Robert Bigelow was first exposed to UFOs when his grandparents told him of their encounter. Back in 1947, his grandparents pulled over in their vehicle to avoid a strange orange orb in their path. They had stopped on the side of the road in the middle of nowhere. The orb glowed brightly and headed straight towards them. Then, at the last second before impact, it made a right-angled turn and vanished in seconds. Bigelow has briefly alluded to having his own entity encounter during this time. He has never given the full details of his encounter, but because of this event and his grandparents' encounter, he developed a lifelong interest in pursuing the UFO phenomena. At a young age, he made a promise to himself that he would choose a career that would allow him to become wealthy enough to pursue UFOs and space transportation. He told no one, not even his wife, of his ultimate goal as he set out to achieve his financial dreams. In 1967, Robert Bigelow graduated from Arizona State University with a degree in banking and real estate. He began building his real estate empire immediately after leaving school. Just 3 years later, he owned 100 apartments in Las Vegas and had broken ground on a 40-unit apartment building. He began purchasing and developing commercial real estate, hotels, motels, and apartments all over the Las Vegas area. In 1987, he created Budget Suites of America, which offered travelers an affordable hotel option. By this time, he had properties in multiple states, and his real estate developments were worth over $1 billion. By the mid-1990s, he had decided he had achieved the first part of his goal, and he let his family and associates know he would begin using his fortune towards investigating UFOs and other anomalous phenomena. The first area Bigelow began spending money, once out of the paranormal closet, was UFO abductions, perhaps a clue to his own experience. In 1991, Robert Bigelow, along with other interested parties, proposed a survey project to estimate the number of alien abductees in America, called the Roper Survey. The survey was sent to 100,000 psychiatrists to give to patients who claimed unusual personal experiences, i.e., abducted by aliens. This was based on a sample of just under 6,000 participants. However, question 6 was used as a control question. Anyone who felt Trondant had a secret meaning for them was eliminated. According to the survey, 3.7% of Americans exhibited abduction-like phenomena. In 1993, Bigelow funded the startup of a paranormal radio show called Area 2000 with Art Bell, George Knapp, and Linda Moulton Howe. Bigelow bowed out, fearing a lack of quality guests could be found. but eventually Art Bell carried the idea forward and that radio show became Coast to Coast AM. In 1994, Robert Bigelow helped create a coalition of the UFO organizations MUFON, the Center for UFO Studies, and the Fund for UFO Research. They all formed the UFO Research Coalition. One of the combined projects included working on something called the Ambient Monitoring Project, aimed at measuring environmental changes during ongoing abduction experiences. Bigelow claims that the UFO organizations could not work together and agree to his demands, so he withdrew his funding, and in 1995 created his own UFO and paranormal investigation group, the National Institute for Discovery Science, often called NIDS. The scientific advisory board of NIDS included UFO researcher Jacques Vallée, Hal Puthoff, who ran the CIA remote viewing program, Melvin Morse, Dr. Eric Davis, CIA analyst Kit Green, and former astronaut Edgar Mitchell. NIDS investigated a wide range of topics such as black triangle sightings, cattle mutilations, consciousness studies, and crop circles. By 1996, Robert Bigelow had also purchased Skinwalker Ranch after reading about it in a newspaper. Skinwalker Ranch is infamous as a hotspot of many anomalous activities.
Each time there would be a performance of a sort, there was always some unique pattern. It was something that was always changed. So we would be prepared that if this type of event happened again, we know what to do. Well, that exact same event never happened again. It would always be something completely different. We were always outguessed. Every time we would come up with some method of observation or calibration, that we were always outguessed as to what was going to, how we were going. And so it became obvious that we obviously weren't the ones in control. We were along for the ride, and that a lot of these exhibitions were exhibitions for gamesmanship or instruction, in that kind of context. The phenomena was playing with us and giving us only a taste here and there of various things, an opportunity to see things that were abnormal, opportunity to cause examinations upon performances of things that were very unique through certain pathological kinds of investigations. And those were opportunities that were very helpful. So in terms of witnessing things, we witnessed things both on camera and in person that we were privileged to witness, that we could have easily not had any opportunities. If the phenomena did not want us to observe anything, then we wouldn't have observed anything.
In 1997, Bigelow donated $3.7 million to the University of Nevada, Las Vegas to establish the Bigelow Chair of Consciousness Studies. It featured coursework in metaphysics, near-death experiences, and extrasensory perception. His donation went towards constructing buildings and for funding the consciousness studies that he kept a close eye on. In 1998, Robert Bigelow decided to combine two of his passions, real estate and space. He created Bigelow Aerospace, a company that he hoped would eventually create inflatable space habitats. Bigelow states that he decided to finally jump into the aerospace business after seeing Congress kill funding for inflatable space habitats. He thought the science was good and began designing his own inflatable space habitats that could expand size in space, lightening the launch load. Bigelow also created Bigelow Aerospace Advanced Space Studies, often referred to as BASS, to research advanced space sciences. While developing these inflatable space habitats, Robert Bigelow was continuing to pursue UFOs. In 2001, the Federal Aviation Administration began directing all UFO reports to Bigelow Aerospace and NIDS. Bigelow is now receiving official reports of UFOs from all civilian and commercial flights in the United States. In 2008, Robert Bigelow reapproached MUFON with a business proposal. This proposal involved unlimited access to MUFON's case file database and utilizing MUFON field investigators. Bigelow contracted 50 scientists designated to be on the scene within 24 hours after significant UFO incidents to perform investigations and analyze any data and material that the MUFON investigators had collected. With these moves, Bigelow secured being sent just about every UFO report in the country, and began his official relationship with the U.S. government. During this time, U.S. Senators Harry Reid of Nevada, Ted Stevens of Arkansas, and Daniel Inouye of Hawaii began meeting in secret to secure funding for an official Pentagon investigation into UFOs. In 2007, the Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program, or ATIP, was created, with black budget funds as to not appear on the official congressional budget. Bigelow Aerospace and Bass would receive the contract from the government for part of the UFO program. Many suspect that the government made this move to get around the Freedom of Information Act, and because Bigelow already had the infrastructure in place from NIDS and Bass. ATIP and Bass began collecting testimony, radar data, and other information regarding UFO encounters that various people within the military and government had during that time. In the process of investigating hundreds of UFO reports, ATIP documented 5 observables that UFOs seem to display. The first observable is sudden and instantaneous acceleration. The second observable is hypersonic velocity. UFOs have been officially clocked at over 13,000 miles per hour. For context, the fastest plane ever made by man is the SR-71 Blackbird, which has been clocked at 5,000 miles per hour. The third observable is low observability. Eyewitnesses and radar returns can pick up these UFOs, but often they are blurry or fuzzy, which suggests some sort of cloaking measure. The fourth observable is multi-medium travel. Human craft are designed differently if they are to perform underwater, in the air, or in space, as seen by the different designs of submarines, planes, and rockets. These UFOs are able to perform just as easily in atmosphere, low Earth orbit, and even underwater. The last observable is positive lift, the ability to defy the natural effects of Earth's gravitational force with no apparent means to generate lift. Human craft such as planes need wings to generate lift, or a hot air balloon can generate lift using heat. These UFOs have no visible wings and leave no heat signatures. Another goal of ATIP and Bass was to theorize the sciences at work that allow these UFOs to perform how they do. Many scientists from accredited universities and research institutes from across the country began writing papers attempting to explain the 5 observables with our current understanding of science. Many of the papers are still classified, but a couple of the topics covered were advanced nuclear propulsion, invisibility cloaking, traversable wormholes, and warp drives. The world learned of ATIP due to a 2017 New York Times article that many consider to be the day that UFO disclosure began. According to the article, the program ended in 2012. However, there are still people working at the Pentagon who claim it is still functioning. Many people also claim that Bigelow is currently in possession of fragments of crashed UFOs. To the Stars Academy is a company created by Tom DeLonge in 2017 to help the government reveal the complex reality of the UFO phenomena to the public over a period of years. Officially, Robert Bigelow is not a part of To the Stars Academy. However, looking at the lineup of NIDS, Bass, ATIP, and To the Stars, there is a lot of overlapping personnel, leading some to say that Bigelow is pulling the strings from behind the scenes. Some members of To the Stars Academy that have connections to Robert Bigelow's previous organizations are Hal Puthoff, co-founder of To the Stars, and who was part of NIDS and ran the CIA remote viewing program, Eric Davis, scientific advisor for To the Stars, who was also on the scientific panel for NIDS and Bass, Colm Kelleher, who is the biotech consultant for To the Stars, and who was deputy director of NIDS and ran NIDS's cattle mutilation investigations, Luis Elizondo, who is the director of global security and special programs for To the Stars and who ran ATIP. I find it almost impossible to think that Robert Bigelow is not connected to the Stars. These days, Robert Bigelow claims he is focusing on his aerospace ventures. He has received contracts from NASA for the space habitats he developed, and currently has 2 in orbit with many more planned. He has also partnered up with Elon Musk and established himself as a pioneer of space privatization. Apart from his financial success, Robert Bigelow has pushed the subject of ufology forward more than just about anyone. By investing his own money and partnering with government agencies, he has helped our species learn about this anomalous phenomena that has been visiting us for ages. I firmly believe Robert Bigelow is connected to the current UFO disclosure we appear to be in the middle of, and that he knows way more than he is letting on. I recommend everyone keeps a close eye on Robert Bigelow.
If all goes well, Bigelow says he plans to build 2 much larger spacecraft BA-330.
Something, objects that were recovered from these encounters, or somehow UFOs have been recovered and studied.
After hearing that story a few times, I realized there was a tremendous amount of things that we didn't know.
When you're talking about things that we didn't know much about, are you talking about alien activity?
Absolutely, yes.
Do you believe in aliens?
If you really bother to do the in-depth research, you come away with unequivocally that is the only answer for all the various kinds of events that occur to people at very close range.